Welcome to From Barriers to Breakthroughs, the podcast that helps you create the life, business, and love you truly want. Not with silver bullets and magical pills, but by removing what's holding you back. Getting unstuck has nothing to do with what you know. It has everything to do with finding the switch within that allows you to turn that knowledge into action. Your breakthrough starts now with your host, Rebecca Mountain.
Welcome back to the From Barriers to Breakthroughs podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Mountain, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of a window into what I have called the Mountain Method, the methodology that underpins both my private client group and also my new certified trainer-led program called 100 Days to Peak Performance, among other things. The name of it sounds like, of course, Mountain Method. My last name's Mountain. Of course, thought it was great, but it's actually not what it's named after. It's named after the fact that we climb a series of mountains from the time we are very, very small. We ride bikes, we learn how to swim, we learn to survive a first breakup, we get married, we maybe get divorced, which I've been through both. Well, I've been through marriage twice, but anyway. And so what happens as we get older is we lose a lot of that youthful ambition and exuberance that has allowed us when we were young to be able to look at our friends cycling down the street and going, I'm not getting left behind. And so we learn to ride. We remember, I don't know if you remember, but I remember that feeling when my parents finally let go of the back of my seat and I was just riding by myself. It felt euphoric. Except over time, as we get older, we start to stop ourselves from going all the way to climbing that mountain, to achieving that summit, to feeling that euphoric exuberance of having achieved what we set out to achieve in the first place. We start compromising and settling. We say things like, it's good enough, it's fine, the worst F word in the world. And we use excuses and we make them sound like they're okay. Because one of the things about the human condition is that we don't like things to be our fault. We want to avoid that at all human costs. And so we'll say things like, well, my business is slow because the economy is slow. I didn't go to the gym because I don't have a membership. Or I didn't eat healthy because I hadn't gone grocery shopping. And so when you look at the excuses you start giving yourself as like, oh, we said, no, it's an explanation. Yeah, it's an excuse. And what happens is we start doing that and we start believing in our excuses and they become truth to us. And they become, yeah, that sounds great. And we, instead of climbing all the way to the top of that mountain, we get about halfway up, maybe, and then we start to turn. We make that compromise. We settle. We just give up. We have too much on our shoulders. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough energy. We don't have enough money. And so because of all of these excuses that we pretend are reasons and explanations, we don't achieve what we want to actually achieve. And we end up having a lot of regrets by the end of our lives. Well, I think that sucks. And so 6 years ago, when I started doing my high performance coaching, I became obsessed with a single question. And that question is, and continues to be my obsession, by the way, why don't people do the work they know they should be doing? You know, you need to make that call. If you make that call, could be $1 million, but you don't make that call because you're like, who am I? Like, there's so many other people out there that are better than me. And why would they want to talk to me? And maybe I'm going to say something stupid and on and on. You've probably had at least one of those thought patterns go through your brain when you had to make a really important call or meeting, right? Or conversation. So we talk ourselves out of it. So we miss the $1 million. But you see, we never knew if we would 100% get the million. And so we don't count it as failure because, well, we didn't try, ergo we didn't fail. And so because I saw through all of my clients, even when I ran my agency, same thing, where they had opportunities to have massive gains, to see huge breakthroughs, just change everything in their world. And they didn't. I became, again, like I said, obsessed with this question. What's behind it? What goes into that hesitation? What makes us turn halfway up this mountain that we really, really want and go back down again? And maybe we never try to climb it again, which is a tragedy. And so the Mountain Method is really, yes, it's about my name, super handy, but it's more about the mountains we need to climb. And I wanted to work on and create a methodology that anyone of any age in any industry at any starting point could use to say, I want that. I want a stronger relationship. I want to be able to talk without being scared. I want to speak on stage. I want to write a book. I want to start a business. I want to have a kid. So there's all these different mountains that we have, and none of us should feel that we don't have the capabilities or the confidence to do it, because we do. Every answer that we need, we already have. Everything that we think that we need to do, but we tell ourselves we don't know, we know. 99% of the time, we know. And if we don't know, we know who does, right? Like, it's not to say that we all have all of the answers, although I would argue we do, but we also can decide, you know what? I bet you I know someone who does have the answer. Let me give you an example. When I went and built my high performance coaching program, I started doing purely one-on-one, which, as you can imagine, destroys my time, because at a certain level, I have so many clients and less time. But it's also not scalable, and it's also not sellable. My problem was creating businesses that were solely dependent on me. So if I wasn't there, the money wasn't being made and growth wasn't happening. And that's a problem if you want to grow a business, because you have this artificial limit. But I didn't know how to actually create a scalable coaching practice. I truly didn't know. But what I did know was where a group of people might be that did. And so I started going to conferences. I started calling people. I had conversations. I never go to conferences. I speak at conferences, but I never generally attend them. But I started doing that. I'm like, all right, let's bust out some new moves here and see what's happening. I read books. I read blogs. I went and watched videos. And at some point, I put myself in a room full of people that did it. They took I take one-on-one coaching businesses and I help you to create what's called a hybrid model and a scalable model. And I'm like, you there, let's go. And I worked with that coach and I created this amazing new private client practice, which I still love, but now it's fully scalable. So did I know the answer to that question? No. Of what do I do? How do I take a strict one-on-one coaching and turn it into something scalable and hybrid? No idea. I didn't know the steps, but I knew what to do to find the answer to get it. And that's what we're talking about here. But me 15 years ago would have sat on my butt and been like, oh, woe is me. I have no idea what I'm doing. Or I would just been pig-headed and tried a bunch of things on my own without asking for help. And it would have been probably a disaster. And so the Mountain Method is designed to help people step by step to go through exactly what it takes to go from, okay, I'm here and I want this thing at the top, right? You can see a little flag waving at the top of your mountain and you're like, ugh, I just don't know what it is that's going to stop me from getting there. And step by step, it does that for you. So let me break it down. The Mountain Method consists of 3 main pillars or stages. The first one deals with mindset, because that's always going to be the thing that trips you up. 85% of success is derived from what goes on between your ears. And this is from a Harvard University study that proved that 85%, to reiterate this quote, 85% of success is derived by having the right mindset. So what does that entail? So the first piece, the first stage, mindset, which I called aligned beliefs, is about 3 main steps. So each of the 3 stages has a series of steps. So beliefs, or the aligned belief section, which deals with mindset, has 3 steps. The first one is emotional resilience. Can you hold your cool no matter what's going on? If your emotions become too big, and it doesn't matter if they're good emotions or bad emotions, I don't believe there's such a thing. They're either manageable or out of control. If you can keep your emotions in a situation and a level of intensity that you can control them, you will never lose focus. You'll always know what to say. You'll always know what to do, or at least you'll be able to take stock and kind of figure out, okay, where do I need to go from here? So the emotional resilience piece allows us to understand that the emotion part of our brain doesn't think. That's why we can say, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. Because the not doing it part is an emotional reaction, not a logical reaction. So if you understand that concept of the fact that most of our decisions are made based on emotions that we're not tracking and we're not understanding, and you learn how to track it and you learn how to recognize it, literally you've solved 85% of your problem. because right up behind emotional resilience is mental resilience. So these are your thoughts. These are the logical pieces of actual words and phrases that we say to ourselves and that we allow to come into our world, right? This is where we hit negative self-talk. So again, the second stage has to do with our thoughts. Step 1 was emotions. Step 2 is thoughts. And our thoughts directly create or affect the emotions that we have. So we can use our thoughts to get our emotions under control or set those things on fire. We use our thoughts to change what we see in the world. There's something called the reticular activation system, which is basically whatever you put into your brain, it says, oh, this is important, and it will see more of that. So for instance, I buy a red car, suddenly everybody's driving a red car. Like yesterday, nobody was driving a red car. But now because I had something that was important to me, my brain's like, whoop, whoop. As soon as you see something like that, hey, that's important, and so on. So if you fill your brain full of thoughts like, I can't do this, or the excuses, my business is slow because, well, it's the market's fault, or the economy's fault, or the politician's fault, or like your dog's fault because he peed in your shoe this morning, like whatever you're saying to yourself, those are the thoughts that are going to create the reality that you're going to see. It's like the lenses you put on your glasses every day. What are you seeing? If you change the lenses, right, and you just adjust your prescription to be more like, okay, maybe I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing, but does anybody really know what they're doing? The answer is no. And you're like, okay, well, then I'm just going to go on an adventure and I'm going to figure it out. If you look at every day like an adventure versus a battlefield, how do you think you're going to approach your day, right? An adventurer has fun. That doesn't mean they don't fail, fall down a crack, have to claw themselves up again, get stuck out in the rain. Of course they do. But it's how they approach it that matters. It's the thoughts they bring into their mind that they allow to be there and be present that changes what they see and then how they react to it, the attitude they have. So emotions and thoughts. And then the third step of aligned beliefs, which is the mindset piece of this puzzle, has to do with understanding and creating boundaries around what makes you happy. Because happy people do all the hard work. Happy people will get stuck out in the rain and be like, well, this is kind of a pickle, but we'll be okay. Happy people know what kind of work they want to do, who they want to do that work with. They will know what kind of schedule they love, and they'll know what environment actually makes them successful and happy and safe. And they start to practice communicating those boundaries. They're like, hey, you know what? This is what I'm loving here. And this is what really I want to create in my life. So, hey, all y'all, I need you to actually understand and appreciate and respect my boundaries. Now, boundaries aren't meant to make other people feel comfortable. They're made for you. It will make people uncomfortable if you've never set them before. So don't be afraid of setting some boundaries around your happiness, because once you do that and you start getting really into practicing protecting those boundaries, your life becomes a lot shinier, right? The days literally feel lighter. You feel lighter. And when you're managing your emotions and thoughts, along with creating those boundaries around your joy and your fulfillment and your safety and security, like, as you can see, 85% of your success starts right there. And that's just the first 3 steps. We have 9 more to go. The second major phase, the major stage, is called taking decisive action. So in this phase, this stage, we have broken into 3 different steps. Again, the first one is called contribution. So think about it. I'm going to use the example of your business owner. If you do not really in depth understand who your ideal client is, but not just who they are, like demographically or psychographically, but like what keeps them up at night now, what are their anxieties and fears of the future? What are the things that they really want? And what are the dreams that they're like, oh, this would be so good. Like, do you know that? Remember we talked about a reticular activation system? That plays into this as well. Because if you identify and memorize and feed that ideal client persona into your brain, what do you think your brain is going to see? More of those people. And you might be like, well, they don't exist. Well, guess what? Go back to step 2 and work on your thoughts, because they are out there, but you may be just completely missing them because you've told your brain it's not there. But if you identify it and you feed that ideal client idea description into your brain, you are like way more likely to actually find more of those people. Your conversations will be different because you will be showing up in a different way. And it's really, really minute. It's hard for you to pinpoint for yourself. So let me tell you a little story about the reticular activation system, why it's so important, and why contribution is one of the most powerful steps of the Mountain Method. My husband and I were interested in buying property in Aruba. And so we decided we should probably go there. So we did. So off we trundled off to Aruba. It was a private beach. And as we're walking along, my husband had a football team hat on his head. I'm not going to say who, just in case, that drops off all my podcasters. But anyway, he had a hat of a NFL team on his head. And then a guy on the beach on a chair, as we were walking by, had a competing NFL hat on his head. And so, of course, they start chatting about football and whatever. And then we just simply ask, because it's a private beach with multiple hotels feeding into it, where are you staying? And the gentleman said to us, oh, we own a property here. Now, if we hadn't gone to Aruba to say, let's see about buying property, that would have been of like, oh, that's interesting. And we would have kept on going down the beach, had lunch, thought nothing of it. But because we had told ourselves what's important to us about Aruba, getting information about neighborhoods and where to buy properties, the conversation went into, well, tell us about your experience. And not only did they have experience buying property, they were one of the top real estate agents on the island. And so that conversation and what proceeded after that would never have happened if I hadn't told myself going down there, hey, brain, look out for opportunities to have these kind of conversations. And when you create the description for your ideal client in that way, that's how your brain reacts. And I challenge you to try it. If you're a skeptic and you're like, it doesn't work, try it. Give it a go, but you got to actually try. But that means you got to write it all out, a description as long and as detailed as you possibly can. Like make it almost ridiculous. Like, is this person like a unicorn? Yeah, make them a unicorn. Because maybe you don't find someone with all those attributes, but I bet you'll get close. So contribution is really understanding who are you trying to affect. So as a business owner, it's your client. If you are a mother, it could be your children, it could be your family. If you're a community leader, it could be those who look up to you. If you're a leader in an organization, it's your team. Who are you serving? Who needs you? Who do you want to have come to you and work with you, to engage with you? How well do you understand who that person is? And make sure you make that clear. So that's the first step of taking decisive action. The second one deals with your work. Now, I have a framework called ADORE, which is an acronym. And the acronym stands for Automate, Delegate, Outsource, Replace, and Eliminate. The objective of this particular step, called roles, is about taking the 18 backpacks that are on your back and redistributing them to other people or technologies, or just letting it go because sometimes you don't need it. How many times do you have subscriptions you're paying for that you actually totally forget about until you go through your credit card statement one day and you're like, oh yeah, that, right? Roles and the ADORE process makes you take a task audit over the course of a week or two, as much as you can, and you basically write down every single thing you do. And you narrow down the things you're doing to like 2 or 3, and that becomes what's called your unique ability. So that's Dan Sullivan's unique ability circle, which I sort of like mashed together with the ADORE process, because you should only be doing the work that you are exceptional at and nothing more. Redistribute the other backpacks. Whether you have a team, delegate it. Don't have a team, outsource it. Need something that's maybe working a little better, replace it. Or eliminate it, get rid of it. And the A, of course, which I completely forgot at the beginning, is automate it. Use your tech to help you out. There are so many tools, from AI to automation and everything in between, that can do a lot of the heavy lifting so that you don't have to. So when you get roles, the outcome of that particular step is that you should open up between 5 to 10 hours a week to do some of your most important work, which brings us to step 3, which is growth. So growth can again be, if you run your own business, It's a fairly easy explanation. You're growing your organization, growing the number of clients, growing your bottom line. If you're a leader in an organization, maybe you need to grow the size of your department or grow the impact or the results that you're getting. Again, so the growth can be, a multi-layered thing. But at the end of the day, if you're going to open up 5 to 10 hours worth of extra time in your week, replace it with high value stuff. And in growth, we look at all the different ways you could grow or that you are currently growing. So I'll use businesses. Say, for instance, to get new clients, they're looking at Facebook ads. Then there's email marketing, networking events. Maybe there's some, what else is there? Blanket webinars, right? Seminars, those kinds of things. And what you do is you actually run through and you say, okay, these are all the things I do to grow my business right now. Which ones actually are directly tied to a client? And then you score them in the program as a whole scoring mechanism. But at the end of the day, you score each one of those sales channels or growth channels according to things like, does it give you energy? Are the clients loyal? Are they profitable? And at the very right-hand side, you will get a score. And the objective is you pick your top 2 and you discard or you minimize or you adore the rest. Because growth can only happen when you get really, really good at 1 or 2 things, not at 10, 1 or 2. And so when you wrap this all together, the first 6 steps in the first 2 stages of the Mountain Method, you now have a killer mindset, you're solid, you're steady, and you're focused, and you have an action plan that is also focused and steady and narrowed down so that you're not distracted, you're not wasting your time. But here's why there are 6 more steps. The third stage has 6 habits of high performance. And so stage number 3 is habits of high performance. And these are the 6 that have been scientifically proven to deliver things like higher income, stronger relationships, and a greater sense of fulfillment. And so in order, I'm not going to go into great detail, but in order, let me explain how they work. The first one is clarity. And it's not just like, are you clear on your goals? Nuh-uh. Are you clear on the meaningfulness behind the work that you're doing? Why do you care? What's your so that drives everything, that determines the clients you bring in, the work that you do, the environment and culture that you create? Clarity is all about really understanding the wholeness of what it is you're doing and not just making it transactional. You're not punching in, punching out. There's a purpose, there's a mission, there's a passion. Where is it? What is it? Right? My passion is to answer the question and solve for people why they don't do the work they know they should be doing. If you follow the Mountain Method, you will stop that pattern. And so what's your mission? My mission is to get this Mountain Method out to zillions of people, as many as I possibly can. And I'll probably never run out of energy because it means so much to me. So what means so much to you? I don't care what you do. I don't care if it's, cleaning houses, landscaping, running a business, or if you're a billionaire. If you don't have meaningfulness to the work you do, it's pretty empty. I'll tell you that much. And I've seen a lot of people with very empty hearts that they're very, very successful, but that doesn't mean that they feel like it's meaningful. So that's first one. So clarity. The second one is energy. And there's 4 arenas of energy. One is movement. So not going to the gym, just moving. Gardening counts. Going for a walk counts. Right? All of these kinds of things count towards moving your body and staying healthy. There's lifespan and there's health span. And you want a long health span. One of the greatest ways to increase your health span actually is to be able to get off the ground without using your hands. And you add a decade to your life, to your healthy life, simply by always being able to do that. So energy is about movement. The second one is nutrition, which is, of course, par for the course. What you put in your mouth will feed your brain. So garbage in, garbage stays into your brain. And that doesn't really help. So if you want to have all the great ideas, if you want to have the energy to do all the things that you want to do, you can't fill your brain with junk. And so nutrition, of course, is a very powerful one and a very important component of energy. The last 2 are stress. So management of stress cannot be stressed, right? Because if you can be able to manage those stressful feelings and those stressful moments, by learning to self-soothe and self-calm, you will be able to continue to maintain high levels of energy all day long. The last one is sleep. Always, always, always try to get as much sleep as you possibly can. 7 to 8 hours is ideal. Sure, there's people out there like, I get 5 hours of sleep and I'm doing just fine. I mean, if you're doing just fine at 5, you would be a brilliant person at 7 or 8. So energy is the second of the 6 habits of high performance. The third one is courage. Now, courage really melds emotional resilience and mental acuity and thoughts together into something that is incredibly powerful. So courage, there's a methodology called mind over mood, which challenges you to not only state your emotions, but rate their intensity and talk about your automatic thoughts and play devil's advocate and work through from a situation of, crazy anxiety and worry into what's a more reasonable way of looking and thinking about this, so that it kind of goes up in a wave, but that wave passes. And on the other side of whatever anxious thought or worry or stress that you're feeling, you can move forward with confidence and with calm. So courage is all about looking at every challenge as something to learn from, but also knowing that you have the confidence in a framework that allows you to move through any challenging situation. Courage is not having fear. Courage is understanding that fear is part of the process. Fear is growth. But managing that fear ensures that growth doesn't tip over into paralysis. And that's what courage is all about. The fourth one is productivity. Now, productivity is not just, time blocking and great organization skills and a killer morning routine. Sure, they help. But productivity is about being intentional with your time. If you did the work in growth and in the roles, right, when we did a door and in contribution, productivity should be a breeze. But it's a matter of understanding prioritization and time management and being focused. So it's distraction management, a few other things, and intentionality in the work that you're doing. That's what actually moves things forward. Number 5, coming in hot, is influence. You need people to follow you. You need them to say yes to you. You need them to work with you. And so influence is about understanding the language of yes, the language of leadership, so that people follow you. You're not a leader if no one's behind you. So you might want to check. And then also understanding persuasion and the power of storytelling. Because if you're trying to do sales and you're just going through a list of, features and benefits, everyone's just waiting for you to stop so they can say no. If you're telling a story, your inner critic goes quiet and you listen to the story. Now, coming out the other side of that story, it's up to you as a good salesperson to continue to use the right kind of, wording and phraseology that keeps people open, that addresses the fact that people are going to make a decision based on emotion. And when I say sales, I mean, I could try to sell cleaning up my kids' rooms to my teenage sons. I got to be a pretty good salesperson to pitch the importance of cleanliness and personal hygiene, right? And those kinds of things. So sales can happen all over the place, not just in business. If you're trying to get someone to say yes, if you're trying to get them to agree, to see your side, you can't just bully your way into it. You have to understand how the brain works. And so that habit helps you to frame your conversations so that people always stay open emotionally and mentally, and so that you get the agreement you're looking for. The last one, number 12 of 12, is called necessity, which is the power of commitment. How committed are you to all of this? When you set your goal at the beginning of the first stage of the process of the Mountain Method, and you went through all of the 11 sessions, on session 12, step 12, I guess, you have to be able to say to yourself, okay, how important is all this to me? What is my ability to persevere? And part of that is just the language that we speak. If you hear yourself say, I'll try, I should, I want, I hope, I need to, I'm going to, that is a spin doctor in your brain telling you like, oh yeah, you're totally committed. You're not. Your brain isn't even firing. There's only one way of talking to yourself such that you're guaranteed that you're going to follow through. And that is 2 tiny little words. I'm sure you've heard them before. I am. I am making calls. I am having hard conversations. I am growing my business. I am a healthy person. I am eating well. I am getting good night's sleep, right? You can see how this goes. When you speak to yourself in I am type language and you skip the trying, needing, shoulding, and shoulding all over the place, you start to operate your brain in a totally different way. And that's why it's really important. Language is everything. Words matter, especially the words you say to yourself in the quiet of maybe the middle of the night when you've woken up and you start to worry, or in the middle of your day when you're having your lunch, or you're driving in your car. What are you saying to yourself? And those words cascading in and around your brain are going to be some of the first things that indicate where you're going. And so with necessity, it's about understanding the power of commitment, of saying, I'm not going to fall back into old ways. Your bad habits and your old way of thinking, they'll never go away. They don't. They're always there. So you can't get rid of them. So you can't let go of things because they're not like balloons. They'll always be there. But what you can do is you can understand that they're there, but have a recommitment strategy to be like, okay, I've kind of wandered away and now I'm going to come back. It's like when I try to meditate, which I'm terrible at because my mind wanders off into 1,000 directions. But I gently kind of, when I've realized I've wandered off into what am I having for lunch today, and that's not really what I'm trying to meditate on, I just gently bring myself back and I start again. And I continue to recommit to that calming process because it's the process that matters. And so the mountain method, as you can see, is robust. It's got mindset, actions, and habits. The mindset is 85% of the success formula. Action is the 15. Habits ensures that you stay consistent, that it endures all of the tests and challenges that you could come up against, and you come out a winner. If you follow the mountain method, there is no mountain you cannot climb. There is no goal you can't set for yourself that you cannot reach, because you probably either already know the answer of what you need to do, but maybe you're just not doing it. And maybe the excuses are really, really good and they sound super convincing, but I'm telling you, they're false. They're fake news for your brain. And if you can rejig that and work through and have different frameworks that allow you to pull yourself back up and keep going up that mountain, and you learn the strategies. Once you've got these 12 steps down, you can reuse them for any goal you have in the world. I'll give you one example and then I'll wrap up this episode. If you have a first goal of, say you make right now, maybe you make 100,000, but you want to make 250. Okay. And let's say you go through the mountain method and the goal you set to which you're applying the mountain method is, I want to go from 100 to 250. All of the emotions and thoughts and different action plans and habits that you have that are tied to achieving that money goal are going to be very specific. Now, let's say you do it. You go from 100 to 250. That's awesome. Plant the flag. But guess what? Now that you make this much more money, you're a lot busier. So now your next mountain is time. You need time. And so you can actually reapply all 12 steps of the mountain method, but to a different goal. And now the goal is time, because your emotional relationship to time is different. The thoughts you have about time will be different. The way you need to grow and move things around in your business because of time and your desire to make more time for yourself will be different. And the habits you have around time are different than they were around money. So you can see how this works. And so the beauty of this methodology is it's reusable, it's fully recyclable. You can use it for anything in any stage of development, right? Whether you have a new problem or it's an old problem. And it will set you free from the barrier that you have created for yourself. It's usually actually quite a few barriers. And trust me, I know, because I had to go and systematically chop down all of mine. But once you remove the barriers and once you have the methodology and you've got this cooking with gas, there will never be something that you can look at and go, I don't think I can do that, because you can, and you will as soon as you're ready to start climbing up that mountain. And when you're ready, there'll be nothing in your way. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope the mountain method is something that you want to try. There's lots of information you can get. You can go to RebeccaMountain.ca. You can follow me at Bex Mountain on Instagram and on most of my socials. I hope I meet you someday and we can talk about the mountains that you've been climbing.
And there you have it, another step closer to removing what's been blocking your path. If today's episode helped you identify even one barrier you're ready to remove, then we're making real progress together. To keep the breakthroughs coming, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and visit RebeccaMountain.ca for additional resources to help you bridge that gap between knowing and doing. This is Rebecca, and you've been listening to From Barriers to Breakthroughs.